4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Jen Bonet with the Creative Coast, Executive Director of the Creative Coast, and this is Entrepreneurs Night for January 2020. Welcome to the Roaring 20s. We're off to a crazy start. It's just the 7th of the month, the 9th of the month. First week in, and we've already had like 7 events here, so it's a little crazy. Tonight, I'm very happy to have Tommy Linstroth with Green Badger here, and we're going to talk about Green Badger and what he's done with that company here in Savannah. So to start out, we're just going to jump right to it because we like to keep these short and sweet if possible. Tommy, tell us a little bit about your background and kind of the what led you to launch Green Badger.
Sure. Well, I'm from Wisconsin, which is where Green Badger got its name, or it contributes to the name. Grew up there, went to school there, and after graduating, I ended up getting a minor in environmental studies sort of halfway through. I became much more passionate about the environment and decided, hey, I should try and do something with it, but didn't want to restart my schooling from the get-go. So I got a minor, took a job doing marketing after that back in my hometown of Racine, Wisconsin, and then realized this was not for me. I really needed to get into the sustainability movement. And so decided to do that. I had to go all out and go get some education, so I decided to go back to school for a master's in sustainability, but I was awfully sick of the cold and the snow of Wisconsin. In fact, when I made the decision, I had ankle surgery, so I was on one foot hopping in my parking lot trying to scrape my car off, and I was like, I'm out of here. I got to go somewhere warm. And so I looked at West Coast and Southeast Coast where it was warm and near the coast, and ended up moving to Charleston, South Carolina, where I got my master's at the College of Charleston.
Excellent. And then first job after that?
First job after that, I'd actually taken a fellowship out in Berkeley with a nonprofit that was doing addressing climate change from local government level, which is a really effective way to do it. And so I wrote my thesis with them and took a fellowship out there, but right before I had left, I'd interviewed with a real estate company in Savannah called Malaver, who was looking at moving their whole real estate portfolio to go green. And so I accepted that job, moved out west, and then they offered me a job out there, and I thought I'd be, living my Berkeley dirty hippie lifestyle working for a nonprofit, but I was like, no, I made this commitment, I need to stick with it. So moved to Savannah, worked in real estate development as the director of sustainability in the early days of green building, when people were wondering why we were doing it, how we were doing it, what did we do to screw up that they find us to make us do green building and all sorts of stuff like that. And we were one of the first really in the Southeast to say, no, we're not doing this because we did something wrong. This is how all development needs to be done. And we really aimed to raise the bar, and we did all sorts of the first green shopping center, first green McDonald's, first green historic buildings that were in the National Register in the Southeast. So we were really ahead of the curve in terms of green construction and green development from an ownership perspective. And so that led me to do consulting, because people kept calling us saying, why are you doing this? How do you do this? And again, we thought the moral imperative was this wasn't proprietary information. We needed to help everybody do this. As we can see, the world hasn't got much better from a climate change perspective in the last 15 years. And so we started doing free consulting, just helping people, and eventually it was like, no, we can't. So we built an internal consulting business. And then unfortunately in the recession, the development side of that organization went away. And so then I rolled off a consulting group called Trident Sustainability Group, and was doing dozens and dozens of consulting projects. And it's a very manual process to help take projects through to earn LEED certification, which is the third-party standard that all of these developers are going to. And so as I was tracking dozens of spreadsheets all over the place and trying to keep myself up to date, and I thought I'm relatively organized, all my peers and colleagues are doing the exact same thing. And I was like, man, this is stupid, and there's got to be a better way to do it. And so in researching, were there better ways to do it? There were not better ways to do it. And so that's how Green Badger was born. It really started, I was trying to build a tool to help my own consulting business at the time, of how do we manage this? How can we accelerate this process to make it cheaper and easier and more efficient for everybody? And then once I got the prototype built, I was like, all right, no more consulting. Like, this is the opportunity. I can keep working on a couple dozen projects a year, or we could work on hundreds of thousands of projects across the country and around the world with our software platform. And that's what Green Badger is today.
Very exciting. Do people build non-LEED buildings today?
Unfortunately, they still do.
Okay,
It's,
I was just wondering, because every building I go into these days is very proud and has plaques on the wall that says, we are LEED certified.
It's heavily regional. It's heavily regional. If you walk into any building being built in Boston or DC, it's required by code, public or private, to obtain a third-party certification. Seattle has the same. So I mean, you see it in a lot of other places. It's become less prevalent in the Southeast, unfortunately. Most of our work is everywhere but this little nugget of the U.S. But anything that's publicly funded has to do it. So all of your Department of Defense or GSA stuff has it. VA clinics, all that good stuff. 2/3 of states require it. So again, most state-built buildings have it. And then there's over 1,000 municipalities and institutions of higher education that require it. So you really do see it on the public side, but even on the private side, 85% of Fortune 500 companies require it. So you've got a huge set, and a lot of them don't advertise it. Like any Starbucks you walk into is LEED certified. You're not going to see a plaque on it, but they are the single largest private landholder of LEED certified buildings because they have tens of thousands of stores that they have prototyped, and now they just build a green Starbucks for every single one of their buildings.
Very cool. Very interesting. So that's kind of the origin story. Where are you at today? Like how many employees, how many customers / projects?
So we've got 4 employees currently, and we're about to be looking for some more. So we'll be hopefully flagging some Creative Coast folks for that.
Awesome.
Right now we've got our sales team is scattered. We've got one in Salt Lake City, one in Charleston. Here we've got myself and our marketing production manager. And then we've got an outsourced development team that we've been using. In terms of customers, we've got 400 projects going on, give or take, and that's scattered over an awful lot of customers. We got a ton of repeat business, and then a lot of our customers are really big, but they're broken up geographically, and they're really decentralized. So a contractor might have 20 different offices. Each one of those is almost a unique customer because they make their own procurement and purchasing decisions. There's not a top-down mandate to do things. They do it in their own geographical region.
And you're a SaaS model?
Yes.
Software as a service model?
We have project-based subscriptions, so each project has a software license that they use for the duration, and now we're working on building that up into enterprise-wide adoption, but we are facing that decentralized procurement as a small barrier to that.
And then so, like when you think about a project, like how many different subcontractors and contractors are logging into your solution to help manage?
It really depends. I mean, we've got a small, again, like a Starbucks or a Hugo Boss retail store where you probably only have 5 people in there, but then we've got LaGuardia Airport where I know there's over 100 people logging into that on an average basis. So we've got projects that are, you knock out in 4 months. We've got projects that are going through 2027 right now.
And as far as so you're tracking all the purchases and whether or not each component is sustainable, right? And then what's the life of that project? Like how long do you have to store that data in order to keep your LEED certification?
Right now what we do is just through the construction of it. Once you hand over the keys, you submit your taxes and you get your plaque and you call it a day. There are existing building and operational certifications, and that's a phase of development we're going to be tapping into at the end of this year. So we're really moving through the construction side. There's a couple other platforms that we're rolling out that go beyond just LEED certification, really to help you, whether you're on a green project or not, yet you can still operate sustainably from a construction perspective. But then the next phase is into the existing buildings, because there's far more existing buildings than there are new construction projects out there. So there's 6 million buildings, if we can get even a percentage of that want to go green, and that we can provide a system where they don't have to go spend hundreds of thousands on consultants, and we can automate that process. It's a win-win for everybody.
Okay, cool. Who was your first customer?
Our first customer. Yeah, our first customer was.
Talk about that implementation.
Well, our first customer was when we were on a different model then. So when we first started, we thought we'd have individual user models, and you just sign up your credit card and we'd get you for life, like a typical recurring model based on having a whole bunch of users. What ended up happening was all those people shared their login. Instead of having 100 people logged in, you had one person logging in. So our first first user was somebody at a company out of DC called HIT Contracting, but we learned after some trial and error that we needed to switch that model from an individual user model to a project-based subscription. And so after that, our first 2 customers, one was CBRE and one was Clark Construction. So we ended up, again, at the beginning, I've been in green building for a long time, so first customers were leveraging contacts I had within organizations who knew me, who were willing to take a gamble on us because they knew me personally and I could vouch for it. And they didn't think we were just gonna take their check and disappear into South Florida or something like that.
Right. Did you take any outside funding to launch the business?
We did. So when I first started development, it was in 2013. Again, I was still working as a consultant and trying to figure out what the heck this thing was going to be. And after I sunk a bunch of money in to get the prototype done, I was like, man, this is not enough to actually roll out what a proper software development was. And at the time, I didn't know what the heck I was doing from a software development point of view, so I didn't have it architected as well as it should be or set up for growth or any of this stuff. So we ended up raising some money from a local angel group here that allowed us to go, we basically went all into development to get the full market-ready version of that build. So we did that in 2014, but we have not taken any additional cash since then.
Pluses, minuses to taking that money?
The plus being, I mean, we wouldn't have been able to get the product built
Right.
for the extent of what we needed it done. It's not a small application. It's a robust application, and it took and still continues to take an awful lot of development effort. And that is, I couldn't have necessarily done that on my own back then. So that was a huge plus to get that. Back then, there hasn't been too many downsides. I think, in hindsight, we probably would have negotiated a better deal had I been a little more experienced around there. And certainly as we move forward, we're looking for investors, but it's almost for knowledge and connections and skills and ability as well as funds. So the next time we raise cash, it's not just going to be for money. It's also going to be to help leverage industry contacts. There's a growing trend of investing in construction technology. It's a very small niche within there, but the people that are in there are well connected, and they can leverage you off their portfolio companies as well as that customer base. And so that's the next step for us.
Awesome. Talk about your outsourced development shop. How did you find them? Is it the same one that's been with you all along, or have you transitioned?
Sure.
You obviously have a strong partnership with this organization.
Sure. We started with a local developer who helped us get a prototype app built. That was, again, not the greatest thing in the world, but you could have it on your phone, which helped us realize where we needed to go. So then we tried a couple different developers locally. They all flamed out. Ended up getting connected to this group through a past acquaintance who was working to try and do U.S. business development for this company based in Estonia, and made the connection with them. And they had a shared ethos, not just of, hey, we want to build software, but they believed in sustainability and what we were doing in our mission. And so it's been a good emotional and business partnership to be able to have them support our efforts. And it's been now five plus years that we've had working with them. So there's a mutual level of trust going both ways. I don't have to have as much bird dogging of them as if I was starting with a new group. I've got faith, and we have a great process down with checks and balances, and they help support us as best they can, both through the software platform as well as all sorts of other ways.
And you personally manage that relationship and the product aspect of it, in addition to being CEO and selling and all that stuff.
Yes, unfortunately. So I'm a sole founder. Everyone tells you it's a stupid thing to do, and they're probably right. But it is wearing a lot of hats as you're running payroll, managing product development, and doing all of the sales demos and whatnot. But hopefully, we're getting to the point where we're going to be bringing on some additional people that can start spreading that workload out.
So specifically around the development team, what kind of tools do you use to help manage that process and communication, since they're so far away?
Sure. So they have an internal project management system that they built, and so it basically accounts for every minute of every hour. Our whole QA process goes through there. So as things get sent to me for testing, we comment. Everything is created in its own sub-issue. We're able to see who's working on it, when they're working on it, as it comes back. Nothing gets pushed out into the code base until it's been reviewed, until it's been resolved, and until it's been approved by us as well as their own internal QA team. So it's the process. The process works really well. The developer themselves, again, they've got their own tools built in to manage. So if there's any time we want to say, we want to see what the developer was doing yesterday, like they logged hours, I want to see it. They can show us screen clips of by the minute of what they're looking at. So they've got it figured out on their end. Those are tools that they share with us to keep our mind at ease since we're a couple thousand miles away.
Excellent, very good. At what point were you like, okay, I think this is working? Like, I actually have a real business here. Right?
Our growth, we've grown 100% a year. Granted, if you started at $1, growing at $2 is 100%. So really after 2016 is when things were starting to pick up. Where it's like, all right, we're probably not quite profitable yet, but I see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like we're starting to get those first repeat customers coming on, and we're starting to get word of mouth. And now, the amount of inbound we get now compared to even a year ago is just amazing. So it's like, okay, we've put this thing in motion that is starting to grow at that rate that you really want to see. So it's, it took a couple of years of living hand to mouth, but we are profitable now on a annual basis. Well, last year being the first year, but we see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's just getting brighter and brighter.
And your strongest marketing channel is just dialing for dollars or conferences? Or?
Right now it's sort of three-phase. We're about to actually roll out a big marketing campaign to help expand it. But so we've got a sales team who does a lot of just phone outreach and then leveraging the existing relationships that we have with our customers, and that's our other biggest one. I mean, 50% of our sales are either repeat customers or referrals. And the repeat it's a long cycle, because once you get on a project for 2 years, you're not starting another one for 2 years, but they go tell their office mate who's like, man, I got stuck with a lead job. Well, you really need to go check out Green Badger. We've got a number of architects and consultants now that are referring us in, because in the end it makes their life easier as well. And then we also just put out a ton of great content. I mean, it's content marketing at its finest. We're putting out just tons of quality educational information. So people are finding us because we're providing them answers to questions they have, and then they're like, oh, who the heck is Green Badger? And then they come in and they're like, man, we downloaded this guide. This thing is awesome. Like, thank you for putting this together. And then, well, do you want to sit and see what we do? Give me 5 minutes and we'll run you through it. And then, we got them.
Excellent, yeah. What has your biggest challenge been?
Biggest challenge? Well, we are in a vertical that has been historically one of the slowest to adopt technology. So construction in general, they have not been out on the bleeding edge of adopting technology. So we've had a lot of changing hearts and minds. The other is that we don't have, knock on wood, we haven't had a true competitor besides a manual process in Excel. So it's not like I could say, well, use my Apple phone, don't use a Samsung phone, our features are all better than those features. They have nothing to compare us to. It's simply, well, we've been doing this by hand in spreadsheets, which there's a comfort factor to, versus, well, scrap this whole old way you've been doing it, and here is a new way. So really, it's been make that emotional connection to a comfort level in introducing a new way, and that's been the biggest challenge. Fortunately, the rating system changes every couple of years, and they had a big change a year or two back, and that made a lot of people's homegrown tools irrelevant.
Broke everybody's spreadsheets.
And so then it's like, well, do you want to start from scratch and redevelop all this stuff, or for $200 a month, that's less than you spend on a job site trailer lunch for the crew, we can solve that problem as well as cut that time you're spending by 2/3.
So when they institute a change like that, how much notice do you have to fix your software before it's...
So they tend to, we don't have a one-on-one working relationship with the U.S. Green Building Council yet. They just had their big conference in November, and we had conversations of that, and we really would like to be ahead of the curve than playing catch up. So a lot of times they put this stuff out there because it's a consensus-based organization, so in the end, the members have to vote on these changes. So we have a pretty good sense of what it's going to be, but there are still some last-minute tweaks and changes, so we do play catch up. the upside again is like people's construction projects are going on for a long time. So very rarely will something happen from USGBC and somebody's like, well, my God, if I don't have this tomorrow, I can't use your software. It's
Right.
like, well, you still got 18 more months, you know.
Yeah.
Give us 2 weeks, we'll be there.
Yeah, it was, well, I guess this was a long time ago, right? I was doing Apple software development, mobile app development in the early days of the iPhone, right? And it just felt like every 3 days there was a new release from Apple fixing some bug, right? And so it was like, okay, I gotta fix my software and test it again to make sure that this release of the Apple operating system doesn't break my app, right? And so that got really frustrating to me. So that's wonder, you know. So if you were to like look ahead, I don't know, however many years it is, 2, 3, 5, 10 years, what does success look like for you in Green Badger?
Success for us would be every single construction project would be using our platform. I mean, there's absolutely no reason they shouldn't be using it. We should be the default standard for the U.S. Green Building Council's rating systems. USGBC should be saying if we want to have a very high standard of what our buildings should be, but we want the process to be as easy as we can, and they should just default to us because there's no sense of trying to make this process any harder than it has to be. In the end, we need more green buildings. We need them immediately. You can't have a barrier of, my God, I've got to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in fees, or it's going to add 500 hours a year to my project. This just, for all of us, needs to be as easy as possible. And we are the best way to do that. And so we should have every building on our platform. And again, we're going to move into the existing building sides of things. So there's, you know, we've got a lot of room left to run.
Do you see an acquisition in your future?
You know, I'll never rule it out. You know, there's organizations that we'd fill a great niche for, and we could, again, my goal is to leverage assets, whether we're going to raise those externally, whether it's through a partnership, whether it's through an acquisition. You know, getting to where we need to get to is tough to do. It'd be tough to do quickly organically at our current rate. So we need some trigger to help that. And again, that could be an acquisition, it could be a strategic partnership, it could be a round of investment that'll help provide us with those resources that we need to get to.
I'm going to ask one more question, then I'm going to open it up to the folks in the room if they've got questions. So, you know, we've got a lot of entrepreneurs that are watching us, or aspiring entrepreneurs that are watching us. If you had to give, you know, you've been on this journey for 4 or 5 years now. What advice would you give the folks in the room and those that are aspiring entrepreneurs that are about to launch a journey like this?
Man, there's a couple things. One, I would say, I mean, it'd be great to find some co-founders if you can, because doing this alone, it's difficult and it just inhibits you. As I said, you gotta run payroll and do marketing and do sales, and I can only do so much in a day, whereas if you have that broken up by a core group of founders, it just naturally allows you to do more. And the second one would really be and it's easy to say you do, but have a thought out go-to-market strategy. A lot of folks I see and talk to have a great idea or a concept, and when you really get to how you're going to sell it, it's, and I'm sure you see it every day, it's I have a great product, of course they're going to come. Like, people are just going to show up and hear about me and stop what they're doing and come buy my stuff, and that is absolutely not the case, right? You've got to be able to identify who your audience is, how you're going to get them. Do you have money to get them? Again, one of the things that I did probably incorrectly was raising money just to get the product built, and that only gets you so far if you cannot get out there and promote it. And it's like, well, you need to spend $100,000 on marketing to get this thing out across all 50 states to hundreds and thousands of consumers. So you've got to have a plan that you can actually implement to get the word out there, or you're going to be sitting on a really cool product that is never going to get sold.
Yeah, great advice. People come to me all the time and they're like, yeah, well, I raised money and I'm building this. I'm like, great. How much money did you save for marketing? I don't have any money for marketing. Okay. Awesome. I know Mark had a question. He asked great questions, Mark.
Yes, Tommy, in terms of introducing this into the marketplace, there are a couple of things that I thought about. Pairing this with some other, let's say, project management software tools that are already in the marketplace. Let's say it's PlanGrid, something like that. Have you taking that approach. Also, it could be a tool for consultants in lead.
Yeah, so both of those, the consultants for sure, they make up about 15% of our user base, and they're either paying or now we're like, hey, if you can get the contractor to pay for it, you get it for free. So just write it into the spec or require it, and it's a win-win because they get the benefit and they're the ones that have this influx of multiple projects coming in. So we haven't marketed it in a set campaign yet, but it's a growing emphasis of what we want to do this year. And in terms of partnerships, that is just something we are also doing. We have our first integration with Autodesk BIM 360, where we've just become an embedded app within their platform. We're doing the same thing this month or next month with Procore, which is one of the #1 construction management softwares. And those are easy integrations, but the plan is really to then we're in their API beta developer programs, and that is a key thing because, same thing. People don't want to open up 2 apps. They can just open up 1 app and we're there, and it also will help us then on the enterprise sales. If they're using Procore or PlanGrid already on all of their projects, it's much easier to say, well, you need to use Green Badger to manage all your lead stuff. So
Yes.
those things are all coming hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yes. Another observation on your website, you say that you are how do you say that? You are aware of your carbon footprint, and you've calculated your footprint as being the equivalent of 10 trees for every project. And to date, you have planted 3,100 trees in Florida. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. So we try, even from this started back in my real estate days, was you've got to walk the talk, right? So we can build green buildings, but if we're cruising around in Hummers while we're doing it, it's not doing anything. So I've been long an advocate of carbon accounting and of tracking what you're supposed to be doing versus what you're emitting. And so we do that here, even though it's a small company and a small organization. We track our travel, our commutes, and our business operations and quantify that. And then we worked to do a carbon offset purchase through renewable energy credits, and then we also plant 10 trees per project, so that it's helping offset not only our own efforts, but some of our customers, clients, and partners as well. And so we did plant 3,100 trees as a sort of a catch-up for our prior years, and then right before Christmas, we closed out 2018 and we planted 2,000 more trees.
Nice.
And we'll continue to do that, and
Yeah.
again, we want to put our money where our mouth is and help our customers be part of that solution as well.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
it is.
Why Florida?
Because it's right around the corner. I mean, they have projects all
Yeah.
over the place, but the Panhandle they're our neighbor. They got decimated in the last couple of hurricanes. I'm sure by the end of this year, we're going to be planting them in Australia, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of places, unfortunately, that need reforestation.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Audience?
Hey, Tom Memraz. I can't hear him.
How you doing?
Doing good. So do you think, like looking back 25 years, do you think you saw yourself here in Savannah with a tech company and a green tech company?
No, I mean, 25 years ago, I was playing soccer in college and worrying nothing about probably going out for a beer or trying to score goals, and that was the focus. Even then, after I got when I was getting my master's, I was really like, I'm going to be in the nonprofit world, doing good and all of this stuff. And I'm really glad it worked out how it did.
Yeah. So what changed? Why go from nonprofit? I know you told the story of how you founded it. But what changed?
Well, the mindset changed. I mean, I took the job because I had committed to it, even though, I ended up writing a book with that group and doing all sorts of stuff on the policy side. But what I realized once we got into green development on the private side is, nonprofits are great. I love them all, especially on the environmental side. But a lot of times they're perceived as just sitting there like harping on you, telling you what to do and what not to do, versus when we were developing with millions of our own dollars and saying, look, we can make the business case for sustainable development. And not only are we just saying you should do it, we are doing it. We are so committed that we're putting tens of millions of dollars into green construction because we think it'll give us a higher return. It'll make our buildings more valuable. Certainly that got people's interests a lot more. I mean, I started the U.S. Green Building Council in Savannah and in Georgia, and we did a ton of education through that same process And it's, it was well received, but when I'd give those same presentations as the developer, people just responded more because they're like, all right, well, it's not just, thou shalt do this because it's the right thing to do. It was, wow, well, you guys you've shown you can do it because it's the right thing to do and it's profitable. And so, being personally vested in it, I think helped lend credibility to what we were trying to do and helped change more hearts and minds.
Cool.
Very cool.
I have one, I guess. I came from higher ed, and back in 2013, they took down an old building and they installed a new building, and it was our first LEED certified building on that campus. And I remember hearing that the actual deconstruction, the demolition process, has to also be LEED approved. And like they had to separate the concrete and the metal and the old asbestos insulation and everything. And so is the majority of your customer base the contractors doing new construction, or is your tool flexible enough to be able to accommodate the needs of new construction versus renovations and stuff like that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, we basically account for anything that's construction related that's not operational. So if it's deconstruction, if it's reuse of an existing building, if it's a gut rehab or anything like that, that all gets lumped into one of the various LEED rating systems that we account for. So it helps with that as well.
Okay.
And pricing is strictly per project?
It's currently per project because we started that way because it was the easiest sell. Everybody needed a job cost. If you're a contractor, you've got to assign it to a specific job, and if it comes as an admin overhead cost, that is a non-starter. So we've been doing it project-based. It's easy enough to get it in a budget. We don't have to get a corporate approval to do it, but we are moving this way because it's easy to say, look, we've got 25 projects with you guys. We'd be able to cut you a bit of a discount. We can quantify what your savings have been. If you'd roll this out to everybody, it'd be kind of silly not to. And they're growing more receptive to that argument.
Do you find that there's a different cost for you for a project like LaGuardia versus something smaller?
Only if you prorate the amount of time. So if we're going to typically we spend less than an hour getting project teams set up. But if you say, okay, well, there's an hour for setup and a couple hours for questions along the way, that's more proportionally of a time in a 4-month project than a 4-year project. But other than that, from our standpoint, it's like once you're up and running, you should be good to go.
Cool. So pretty low support cost, it sounds like.
Pretty much.
Good.
We talk to the LaGuardia team. We check in with all our teams every couple of months or every quarter with just a, hey, how's it going? Again, our customers are our best salespeople at this point, so we're treating everybody still while we can with kid skin gloves, because if they fail because of their own user error or lack of planning, it still makes us look bad. They won't hear. They'll say, I used Green Badger and we didn't get certified. And it's, well, that's because you didn't do anything or because you uploaded blank PDFs or whatever the case might be. So at this point, we're being extra, still 4 years in, being extra considerate of our customers and helping ensure their success, because we know long term that's going to pay dividends for us.
I was going to ask, given the environment with the loosening of regulations and the political environment, has that impacted LEED or anything, or caused any turmoil in terms of like loosening environmental regulations?
Knock on wood, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. But again, the diversification is still pretty good. So even if it would suck if the federal government said we're going to stop pursuing green certifications, and that would impact a lot more people than myself. But you've still got such widespread support at state, local, higher ed, and the private sector that it would be impactful in a negative way, but it wouldn't be the be all end all.
Awesome. Any other thoughts for our entrepreneurs in the audience or out there?
Well, just that, you can follow your passion and hopefully make it. And there's a lot of right ways to do startups and there's wrong ways, but perseverance is probably one of the biggest ones. Being a sole founder, everyone tells you can't do it, and I will tell you it's extremely hard, and if I was doing it again, I wouldn't, but you can do it and you can be successful. And hopefully you can continue to espouse your own personal values through your work and continue to grow, which is what we're hopefully doing here.
Awesome. And how do people find Green Badger?
Go to our website at getgreenbadger.com. You can find us on Twitter at getgreenbadger. You can find us on Instagram and all the other usual channels at Green Badger.
Awesome. Awesome. I am Jen Bonet of the Creative Coast, and that's it for this January 2020. We'll be back in February with another Entrepreneurs Night in our new space downstairs. So look forward to catching up. See ya. Bye.
And we're off.
Got that down.